Welcome to the David Goodman Reality and Truth Show. My name is Vanita Lambert, and I have the honor of hosting the show every single week. I have a very special guest today, Miss Jean Rabinow. She's an attorney, and she's also works at the Registrar of Voters in Trumbull. And boy, do we have some good information for you today. I asked Jean to come because I feel like this election is just more important than any other one because there's so much at risk or on the ballot this year, this election period. So, Jean, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
This is her second time here. She came, was it last year?
I believe so.
Along with Laurel, and they gave us some really important information about voting. And she's here again because Connecticut has a new voting law for early voting. Is that correct?
That is correct. And
wonderful. Can you just reintroduce yourself a little bit and tell our audience a little bit about you and what you do, and then, yeah, we'll get into that.
All right. I have been Trumbull's Registrar of Voters now for a couple of terms. Like all registrars in the state, I'll be running again in November. Each town in Connecticut has two registrars, at least, one Democrat and one Republican. And sometimes if there's a third-party candidate who outvotes us, there might be a third as well. But the state is set up so that each registrar's office is constantly nonpartisan. Political, yes, but very much as neutral as possible when it comes to how we run the election, how we tell people about the election, and what we do. And I am looking forward to serving another term.
Wow, that's so very important that you have to be so neutral. You can't sway anything either way, and that's the way it should be. You know,
I agree with that.
It has to be in order for it to be free and fair. Because if you were able to sway it either way, that means someone's getting cheated out of a vote.
Well, I agree with that completely.
Am I right or wrong?
You're absolutely right. But I will say that it drives the voters crazy when there's a ballot question, which there will be in many towns and perhaps statewide. In fact, I know there will be a ballot question in November about absentee ballots. And the poll workers and the registrars are not allowed to explain how we want you to vote. All right? And voters will come up to us and say, what does it mean? What should I do? And we can't tell them what they should do. That would be skewing the results, and that's not our job.
What are some of the ballot questions that you guys are faced with?
The main one this year is going to be about absentee ballots. And the state, for many years, has had a limit in the state constitution as to what reasons a person can apply for an absentee ballot. And there's only 7 of them. Things like being out of the country, being assigned by the military to a post where you can't get back to your polling place, being assigned by your elections officials to a precinct where you're not allowed to vote, being sick, being disabled. There are 7 reasons and only 7. If the referendum question passes, it would take the matter out of the Constitution and would give it to at least the legislature, and we could end up with what's called no excuse absentee voting, which means that people could just say, I want an absentee ballot, and they would be entitled to get it.
Oh, okay.
But that's not the law yet.
Wow. So you said there's 7 reasons. You were going a little quick there.
Yeah.
I wanted to write all these down. Travel, military, disabled, sick, and what were the other 3?
Being assigned to a polling place other than your own, because the
Okay.
poll workers can't just get up and leave to go vote in their own precinct.
Okay.
And I'm trying to think of what the other ones are. There are probably a couple, but by and large, it can be confusing. One of the others, and one of the ones that really hurts in Lower Fairfield County when people commute to New York for work, is not able to get back to the poll in time before closing. If you're on the train at 6 in the morning to get into your job in Manhattan, and you don't know that you're going to get out of that job until basically after 8 o'clock when the polls close, a lot of people will not say, I know I'm going to be out of state. All right. and they therefore miss their vote. I have had people rush up to the polling place 5 minutes after 8, having just gotten back.
Oh my God.
Okay.
We can't have that.
No, I can understand why people have been advocating for no excuse absentee.
Awesome. So that's early voting.
That's absentee voting.
Absentee. What was the difference between
Okay.
absentee and early
early
voting? Because now I'm confused.
Okay. If you are going to vote absentee,
Okay.
you have to go to the town clerk in your town, and you have to ask for an absentee ballot application. You have to fill it out. You have to let the clerks process the application. Now, in many towns, they can do that while you're standing there, but not always, all right?
The processing
Yeah,
portion?
right.
Okay.
And then they will either send you or hand you the actual absentee ballot and 2 envelopes. Actually, they'll hand you 3 because everything will be sealed into an outer envelope. You can then vote right then and there, or you can take it home and vote at home. Then you have to seal the ballot into a very small inner envelope. You have to sign and date the inner envelope. You have to seal the inner envelope. You then put that into the secondary envelope, and you have to seal that, and then, and only then, do you mail it in or hand it back or drop it in the ballot box. There are votes that have been invalidated because somebody forgets to sign the inner envelope, or they don't get it mailed in on time. And Connecticut is not a state where if it's postmarked, we'll read it. If it's not in the hands of the absentee ballot counters by 8 p.m. on Election Day, it's not going to get counted.
Oh my goodness.
Okay? Which is one of the reasons why there was a big push for early voting.
Okay.
Okay. Early voting enables you to walk into the early voting location in your town. In Stratford, I'm not sure where it's going to be, but it'll be on the town website pretty soon. In Trumbull, for the November elections, it'll be in the community room at the library. So there will be a place where you can walk in, and if you're a registered voter, they will hand you a ballot and a ballot envelope. You'll fill out the ballot, you'll sign the ballot envelope, you'll seal the envelope, but there's only one of it, and then you can put it in an envelope slot in a depository box right then and there in front of the workers, and you will know that the envelope has been set aside for counting.
This is early voting.
This is early voting.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to take notes and write
Yeah.
this down because I really don't know anything about it because it's new.
It's new.
This is a new law in Connecticut. So, question number 1 for early voting. When does it start?
All right, for the November election, it will actually start October 22.
So early
Voting starts October 22.
22nd
And it will go to November 3.
through November 3rd.
Which is the Sunday preceding the election day, which is November 5.
Okay.
And
And that's a Sunday.
that's a Sunday. There will be weekend voting. The hours are normally going to be 10 in the morning till 6 in the evening, but on the Tuesday and Thursday preceding the election, it'll be 8 to 8. So there will be hours for people to get there, and there'll be 14 days to get there. And for people who can actually make it into a physical location and vote, there are certain advantages to voting early as opposed to using absentee voting. And for people who cannot make it to the polling place on the Tuesday, November 5, it's a lifesaver,
The early voting.
the early voting.
It's a lifesaver.
It is
for
a-
the people. So if you're disabled, you don't have transportation, it is best that you do early voting.
Or absentee. If you have no transportation at all, absentee is the way to go. If you have some transportation, they will do what's known as curbside voting for you, both at the early voting location and at your regular polling place. You don't actually have to go in.
Okay, so those are those boxes outside, curbside, you could drive through.
There will not be boxes for curbside.
Well.
Yeah, for curbside voting. All right, you actually can send somebody into the location, the polling place or the town hall or wherever it's going to be, and they will send out workers from both parties with they will check to make sure, they will check your ID.
Okay,
If you're a registered voter, they will then come back and bring you a ballot and a sealed thing, a privacy envelope, and you can go ahead and vote. One of the advantages to early voting is that if you're not registered, you can actually register at the early voting site. They will clear you through overnight, and the next day you'll be a registered voter and you can come in and vote.
That's really interesting. So, and this is important here, early voting between October 22nd and November 3rd, which is a Sunday, you said, right?
Right.
If you are not registered to vote, you can register
At
early voting?
And 24 hours later, you're cleared to vote.
Okay, and to register, what would you need? Just your license?
You need some form of ID. It doesn't have to be a driver's license.
Okay.
Under state law and federal law, because it's federal election, it has to be something that shows who you are and that you are a resident of the district in which you're going to vote.
A UI bill or something?
UI
mail,
bill. People have been known to
license.
bring their driver's license, their non-driver ID, their lease, their
State
mortgage.
ID. Oh,
Okay?
Hey, your tax bill. That's
If your tax bill is being mailed to you at home, that's a pretty good sign that that's
Yes.
where you live.
especially if it's stamped paid.
Yeah, doesn't hurt. But basically, the federal law and the state law is, it's got to have the ID that you show. It's got to have your name and your photo, or your name and your signature. Okay, or you have some ID with your name and that shows your residence, such as a letter mailed to your current home. If you have a driver's license, even if it's in the wrong town and you've moved, sometimes the DMV will give you that little sticker to put on the back. That's fine, as long as there's some proof when you're registering that you are actually resident of the place you're claiming.
What if your license is expired?
That's a problem. The
If
law
your
says
license are expired, wow. Okay.
get a current
I
ID.
buy beer and you learn your license are expired, at the grocery store.
It's been known to happen, but a current ID will help.
Current ID. That's
Current
the key.
ID.
Can I be anything expired? Take it from me.
Yeah, this is absolutely true.
I could buy my husband beer.
Yeah, no, this happens. If you are not registered on election day and you're voting in person at the polls, and they say, wait a minute, you're not on the list, and there's two categories of voters who are not on the list. There are people who were marked off or who were never on in the first place, and there are people who just haven't voted in the last 4 years who are inactive.
Okay, people that just haven't voted in the last what?
4 years.
4 years. Okay.
Okay.
Because I thought it was less than that. I thought if you didn't vote 1 year, your name could fall
No.
off the list.
You-
So you have to go 4 consecutive years.
Before you're taken off the list.
Okay, for the presidential election.
Any
or is this
election.
for local.
Any
Okay.
election. In
Okay.
Connecticut, as long as you have voted, once you vote, you're good for the next 4 years
Okay.
to the date. Now, let me say this. If you're just inactive, they can reactivate you at the polling place, okay? And you can vote.
So-
If you are not inactive and you're not active, there is something known as same-day registration. And you could go to, in our case, again, it will be Town Hall in Trumbull. Usually it's the Town Hall or the Registrar's Office, and they can actually get you registered and give you a ballot right then and there.
Awesome. So, folks, for early voting, you can, if you're not registered,
You can register.
or if you're inactive, right? I want to get this right.
Yes.
You can register or get activated between October 22nd and November 3rd.
Well, actually,
Is
you'd
that
better
true?
register by November 2nd because it takes 24 hours to clear through.
Oh, it's okay. So
Okay.
we can change this to the 2nd.
Yeah, okay. You can
So
vote
I
on the
just want to
3rd,
get
but
all the information right. You know what? It's still August. Don't even wait until then.
don't wait, don't wait.
Go out now. Check your ID. Make sure it's not expired. And get all your little ducks in a row. Make sure your address is changed on it. And if you're not registered, here's what I would do. I'm an insurance agent, so there's always a backup plan. I would bring my license or your state ID or your passport, anything you're saying, any type of ID with your picture and your signature, and it has to be current.
Yes. Current.
Also, a piece of mail. You can't go wrong. You can't hurt. It's just a piece of paper, a tax bill or something like that. Just in case, you're...
In case there's a question about
Yeah.
where you live.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Remember, you can only vote where you live. You cannot, the exception is students. Students live in various places in the country for 9
Yeah.
months out of the year. But if they choose to be at their parents' home address, they may do so. That's legal.
Right.
Because they're not treating their dorm at stores or wherever as being their real residence. It's just where they're temporarily sitting. Their home is their home. So
Okay.
students have the
Right.
option.
So now, that raises a good question for me. What if you're not registered and you're trying to get registered and you're not at your polling place?
Oh.
So that has been a problem. I know. You got to be in the right place.
All right. If you are registering at early voting, there will be only one early voting location in most towns.
Okay.
Some of them will have 2 early voting locations, but that would be the max. All right. As I say, in Trumbull, it will be the library. That's where you go, and that'll be fine. If you are going to register on Election Day, and in prior presidential years, we've had as many as 300 people registering for the first time on Election
Why would they
Day.
wait that long?
Don't ask me, but there it is.
It's better late than never.
Yeah, exactly. In Trumbull, and I would not be surprised if in Stratford, it will be in Town Hall. That's my guess. In Trumbull, I know it's going to be Town Hall. And there will be a separate room set up just for people who want to register. And that will also be a polling place. But that will be the last time that will be your primary polling place. From then on, you'll have a place in your
And
district.
they'll mail that out to you.
They will also mail...
We get a postcard.
Yes. If you're a registered voter, active registered voter, almost every town I know will send a reminder, either a letter or a postcard, saying what the days are, what the hours are, and where you vote.
Okay. All right. I'm still learning all this. So early voting, there's 2 terms, right? Let's see what else. Ballot questions. We
Yes.
already reviewed that. Reasons for, is it early voting or absentee?
No, that's for absentee.
Reasons for and I have it
Early
right there,
voting-
absent voting.
right.
So now let's talk about absentee voting.
Okay, absentee voting is a little trickier. There is no way, all right, to get an absentee ballot if you are not a registered voter. Okay.
That's important.
Yeah, and
So you cannot get an absentee ballot if you are not
Not
registered.
registered.
So it's always, even if you're on the line, excuse me, I just want to step out here for a second. On the line about, I don't know who to vote for, and I'm not sure if I'm going to vote or not. I would say just vote. That would be my
all right. My feeling, by the way, is you may not know who you want to vote for
Yeah.
president, but you may have a strong feeling about senator. Or you may not care who on the federal side, but
Right.
you know who you want to have represent you in the state legislature, or vice versa. I have done ballot recounts where we actually see the ballots. We don't know whose they are, but we see them. And there are many times in a presidential year when the only block that's checked off is the presidential block.
Oh,
Okay? There have been other years where they just don't know who they want for president, but everything else is checked off. This is the voter's option. As long as you check off something on the ballot, it can be read. It will be counted.
I didn't know that. That's really interesting. What I was going to say, if you are not registered, I was looking for the words, my advice would be to get registered.
Yes, please.
That is the main thing. Give yourself the option and make the decision if you're going to do it or whatever you're on the line about. Always register. That way you have the option.
Absolutely.
And do it early. And I would just urge you, like Jean just said here, you can vote for the president, or I've always voted for everybody on there. I thought we had to in order for the ballot to be counted. See, these are just things we just don't know.
All right. Let me say this. A lot of
that's
people know that the presidential election this year is important, and it is. But quite frankly, the people who are running for state senate and state house are going to decide how high your taxes are, and whether your schools get a grant to be refurbished, and whether there's going to be enough money in the state budget to help with textbooks, or whether Route 111 is going to get repaired, or 113, all right? The fact remains that when it comes to your day-to-day living, the people that you put in the state legislature are probably more important than the people that you put in the federal legislature or the White House. And I'm sorry to say it, but it's true. The White House sets the policy. The U.S. Senate and the U.S. House do the overall laws. But when it comes to taxes and improvements and how you live, it's the state.
Yeah, but now, I mean, here's what I would recommend too. You know, look at the politicians, find out what their policies are, and see if they're in line with yours. And I think, personally, this presidential election will matter.
Oh, yeah.
It will definitely matter, and I do believe federal supersedes the state in some laws. Just say there's a national ban on something mandated by the president.
It works both ways.
The states can overturn that law?
It works both ways, all right? Okay. There are rules, for instance, labor organizing, all right? There are rules about labor organization, and there are some things that the federal law now says that the states cannot do. But if a state law gives more permission to one side or the other, sometimes it's allowable because the federal law might be looked at as permissive rather than controlling. There are other things, and I hate to bring up a really live political issue, but abortion access.
Go ahead.
All right. Right now, Connecticut has, and has had for 20, 25, 30 years, a fairly non-restrictive abortion access law. If the federal government decided to ban abortions, and it could go through both the House and the Senate and get signed by the president, that would supersede the state law.
The state, that's exactly what I was talking about.
And that is the reason why a lot of people care a lot about the federal elections.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard some horror stories about that. I don't want to get into the politics of it. I don't want to endorse anybody. I just want to let everybody know that this is your voice. Take advantage of it and vote for one side or the other or the middle or whatever you're going to do. Find out what their policies are, find out what you stand for, and go out and vote. Yes,
I remember when the state was thinking about passing its abortion access law. We had a meeting at the League of Women Voters at my local league, and I have a strong opinion on this, and I got up there and I said, if you're in favor of changing the law to permit more widespread access, this is when you should write to your legislature. And then I looked around at my members and I said, and if you're against it, this is when you should write to your legislature.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't matter what the issue is that's on the ballot. She's right. Vanetta is right. Vanita is right. If you care about the issue, and I don't care which side you're on, vote for the candidate who is most likely to do what you want to do. And even if there's no candidate who wants to do what you want to do at all, remember that at the state level, they tell me that if they get 17 letters or emails, that's a landslide.
Really?
Really.
I didn't know that.
If 17
I
people...
I could get that from my neighborhood.
Yes, you can. And if that many people write to a state legislator, he or she is going to pay attention.
Wow. That's good information. I mean, that's really good information. I'm so glad I brought you on and to just, inform everybody about some of the specifics that we just don't know about. And I would just urge everybody to, take some time and get familiar with some of the policies. There's a lot of people out there that don't know what's on the ballot. And it will affect you one way or another, whether it's one or the other. It will affect you, whether I don't care what side you're on, you will be affected.
I agree totally.
100%.
Can I say one other thing about voting?
Absolutely.
All right. One of the reasons I like in-person voting as opposed to absentee or early voting, all right, I mean early voting's in person too, but all of the absentee and early votes, you fill out your ballot, you seal it up, and it goes in to be counted on election day. If you are at the polls in person and you make a mistake on your ballot, for instance, you vote for two different people in the presidential column, and people have been known to do this, okay? The machine will kick the ballot out and you get a second chance. You can take the ballot back to the ballot clerk and say, I'm sorry, I didn't vote the way I wanted. Can I have a new ballot? And they will void the ballot. They will spoil it so that it can't be read by machine or by anyone else. And they will hand you a new ballot and you get a do-over. And you get as many as you need until the ballot goes through the machine. That is not an option that's available under any other methodology. So what I'm saying is, if you can get to the polls on Tuesday, November 5, probably safer.
Wow. So if you mailed it in and say you voted for the two presidents, it would just kick it out. You would never know, and your vote will never be counted.
Right. The other votes on your ballot will be,
Oh,
but that
okay.
but the vote where you messed up will not.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All
So
right.
there is a way of overriding mistaken votes, but it voids out any of the mistakes.
I got you.
So please, people, if you can make it to the polls, I strongly recommend it. If you can't, there are absentee ballots and there is early voting for those
I'll
who
be
need
there.
it.
I collect my family. We all go at 6 in the morning. But listen, we have about 2 minutes left. What would you like how would you like to end this with our audience for early voting and absentee ballots? What would you?
I would say if you don't know the candidates, all right, there are places you can go. The League of Women Voters has a website, Vote 411, where we at least list who's running, which party they're in, and if they answer the questions that the League has put up, you will see their answers to their questions. Okay, in Stratford, the Stratford Crier will have a voter's guide where the candidates answer the questions in their own words, unedited, all right. If you need to find out how somebody feels about an issue that you care about, you should go look.
Oh, okay. That's good information. Definitely. I love this subject because I'm just so passionate about it, and I just want everybody to have the right information.
I
And,
agree.
You know, if you don't have the information, you can't take advantage of any of the benefits. So listen, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
And I hope to have you back again before early voting start. You or someone from the registrar's office. And that's it. That's our show. It's already over. Thank you so much. This is the David Goodman Reality and Truth Show, and we're on your side.